Hey everyone, just coming in here to talk to you a little bit about research and the research process. And one of the biggest parts of the research process, in my opinion, is the MLA Annotated Bibliography. We're going to talk about the importance of research questions and best practices as you begin your research project. Okay, so a couple things to think about when we're talking about an MLA Annotated Bibliography. We're going to ask a couple questions here. What is the purpose of creating an annotated bibliography? And what are the requirements for creating an annotated bibliography in MLA format? All right, so this is the long answer. This actually comes from Purdue OWL. This is one of the main places I send students to find resources for MLA. So this is going to be a mouthful, but I feel like it's very important to understand this. The purpose of creating an annotated bibliography is to learn about your topic. So writing an annotated bibliography is excellent preparation for a research project. Just collecting sources for a bibliography is useful, but when you have to write annotations for each source, you are forced to read each source more carefully. You begin to read more critically instead of just collecting information. At the professional level, annotated bibliographies allow you to see what has been done in the literature and where your own research or scholarship can fit. To help you formulate a thesis, every good research paper is an argument. So the purpose of research is to state and support a thesis. So a very important part of research is developing a thesis that is debatable, interesting, and current. And that's what we're looking for with this paper. Writing an annotated bibliography can help you get a good perspective on what is being said about your topic. And by reading and respond to a variety of sources on a topic, you'll start to see what the issues are, what people are arguing about, and then you'll be able to develop your own point of view. That statement right there, that whole page comes directly from Purdue OWL. The link is there at the bottom of the screen. All right, additional reasons for creating an annotated bibliography include it helps you keep a log or a journal of your research. It is very difficult to keep track of everything you read. And so when you find yourself thinking something is really important, that's when you go ahead and put that entry, the source, into your annotated bibliography, and you start taking notes on it. It also helps you organize information. It helps you prevent plagiarism. It will save you time, and it will help you better understand your resources. Okay, so those are just a few things. Okay, so I get this question a lot, and I've given this assignment every year for several years. What are the requirements for creating an annotated bibliography in MLA format? Okay, not everyone actually agrees on this format, and unlike MLA formatting for essays, there is not a one particular way written down in the MLA style guide. Okay, that said, when you are creating an annotated bibliography, you need to be absolutely consistent. Okay, so I tell my students that it looks very much like an essay with some key differences, which I'll point out to you, but not everyone agrees on the format, so we must be consistent. Your MLA annotated bibliography should be absolutely distinguishable from an essay, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. The most consistent online research tool for MLA is the Purdue OWL, so I follow the guidelines that they have. Okay, we're going to base our annotated bibliography in this video on the guidelines established by the Purdue OWL. Okay, so you need to follow consistent guidelines, and we're going to look at some similarities and differences from a typical MLA paper. Okay, I shortened the URL, so if you look at the bottom there, it's https tinyurl.com/anbibtlap. Okay, so we're going to break down all the parts of an annotated bibliography right here. As you can see, I titled this slide Anatomy of an MLA Annotated Bibliography. So as you can see, there are lots of parts that are similar. So some of the things that are similar to a regular paper would be your heading, which has your first and last name. It has your instructor's name or professor's name. It should have the course code and section, and it should have the date, okay? Also, you should have a header. So the header should have your last name with a space between your last name and page number. I have an separate video on this that explains how to do it. Okay, so a lot of things are going to be different, though, than a regular paper. And one of the things I've pointed out is that there should be extra space between all of the page elements. So I've identified the page elements with red arrows. Okay, so we have the heading, the header, we have the title, the research question, the source, and the entry. Okay, all of these different pieces require space between them so it stands apart, so that it does not look like an essay. Okay, if you'll notice, there's an extra space between the heading and the title. That is not usually the case with a paper. Also, there's an extra space between the title and the research question. There's usually not any extra space. Everywhere where it says extra space in gray in the oval boxes, that is something that is usually not present. Okay, so after you've put in your title, you need to put your research question, and this should be what you are going to be researching. This is just an example on the page here. All sources are alphabetized by first word, and all sources should be hanging indented. Okay. Additionally, there should be an entry for each source. The entry should be lined up with the bottom of the hanging indentation here. Okay. Additionally, all MLA papers are in 12-point Times New Roman font. They are double spaced and they have 1-inch margins. So anytime you're hitting the extra space here, that's giving you an additional hit of the return or enter key between each element. All right. Looking at the second page, I also want you to notice that the sources are alphabetized by first word, and the pieces of the entry actually have 3 paragraphs. Okay. The first paragraph of your annotated bibliography should have a brief summary of the source. It should tell what the source is mainly about. You can look at the abstract and then make sure you don't spend too much time on summarizing the source. The summary is for you to remember what the source was about. The second paragraph is an evaluation of the source. Was it easy to read? Was it challenging? Who was the intended audience? And this is where you can discuss how well you like the source or if it was difficult to get through. The third paragraph is going to be the longest. This is where you explain how you're going to apply what you've learned as a result of reading the source. So you could have quotations in there that you want to use. This is going to be the meat and potatoes, okay? So look through that. I'm going to create a PDF of this that I will upload next to it so you can flip through it, and or you can just pause the video as we go through it. Okay, so as you can see, there should be still a header on each page. There should be a source, and the sources need to be alphabetized by the first word in the entry. If we go back to the first page, notice how the first word of this entry is climate change, because this came off of a database that did not show the author's name. But if we look at this next page, this right here is the author's last name. It does not matter if it's last name or the article name. It goes alphabetical by the first word in the line, okay, once you've created those entries. All right, so please make sure the main point is be very consistent. You need a space between all page elements, as we saw in the previous 2 slides, between the title, between each source, between each entry, between each paragraph. You need that extra space. You need to alphabetize all sources by the first word in the line. Each source should contain an entry, and each entry should include 3 paragraphs. Again, the first paragraph is a brief summary. What was it all about? Second paragraph is an evaluation of the source. How useful or accessible was it? And the third paragraph should be the application of the source. How will you use it in